out. We did try to put that out there for everyone. And we did get some information, so I will share all of that feedback with you. And on the right-hand side of the screen, questionnaire responses by grade, just to let you know the balance of our in-house families and how many families responded per student across the grade level. So it seems pretty balanced there, above 200 around each for those. So I think that's important to share. That I did have the breakdown for the cyber and the other two groupings. It was just kind of all through there, 1 to 12. I'm not sure it would help with the numbers there, but wanted to share that. So the first question that everyone was asked in the survey, it says, do you intend to send your child for 5-day in-person instruction next year? And it was obviously a little more wordy than that, but that was the basic essence of the question. So you can see question 1, if they said yes, then in essence, their survey was over. That's the information we needed at that time. So those are the response rates and the percentage that replied yes. We are interested in coming in 5 days in person, face-to-face instruction. Then if you slide to the middle of the chart, if they said no, they do not intend to send in person. You can see the numbers of people that said no. And then there was a third response there that was an other. And it was for various reasons of why. So you can see, again, the percentages add up to 100, or at least I hope they do. And you can see the different breakdown. If you answered question 1 no or question 1 other, you were prompted with a second question. But before we get to that question, let me explain some of those various reasons. So people, these are not flat out no's or not flat out yeses. So this was a culmination of the feedback that we received on the open-ended responses of why people were not able to make a decision at that time. They're either waiting on a pediatric vaccine. I'm assuming that's under 12. But I think at the time of the survey, really the 12 to 15 vaccine wasn't really even on the radar. It was saying it was still months out. So I don't think it was that realistic at that time. They were depending upon where the cases are, what measures we're going to have in place. Some said they were moving. Some said simply they're not sure. They possibly will return. They're undecided. All legitimate answers, several months before that. Depends upon if masks was a hot topic in there. If they're going to be masks, and some were saying if there's not masks, they may not be there. So that will really come down to where we are guidance-wise at that time. I know that will be a question as we get ready for a parent declaration, and if there's a decision to be made. But we will we'll talk about that in a little while in terms of the disease itself, the virus itself, and what the close contacts will look like, as well as the quarantine possibilities that move forward. So the question was, will there be social distancing? Will vaccinations be required by the district? That was a question. I think that's more going to come from the state and how they determine that. Some, mostly secondary, preferred the 4-day-a-week model. They said they liked those Wednesdays for students to catch up and get caught up. And then finally, a couple said they were going to cyber school for next year. So I wanted to provide the flavor of those responses for the various other responses. So as I said, if you answered question 1 with a yes, the survey was over. We said thank you very much, and we had the information. If you said no or other, you went to question 2, which is on the screen here. Question 2 is we explained that our plan for students in the virtual world was that we would be offering a UPOLA type of model, which what we presented was in 1 to 5, something along the lines of synchronous instruction, which looks similar to what we were talking about, what it looks like this year. And in 6 to 12 was going to be more of an asynchronous model, kind of steering away from that room and Zoom at the same time. Although that's not off the table. This was the plan. This was the idea for our families to help fill the survey out. And if you're not aware, we did make a statement when we started the full-day kindergarten program that there was no virtual option for full-day kindergarten. That we were wanting that all in person, knowing the value of having that. And honestly, we have some administrators that would want to go. I want to make the statement that we do believe that in person is the best model for learning and for students and supporting on all fronts. So that's out there and still a discussion point. So if you got to question 2 with those 2 different models, even though 1 synchronous and 1 asynchronous, the general gist of the question there was, are you interested in that virtual option for next year, the synchronous 1 to 5 or asynchronous 6 to 12? And you could see the number of responses that said yes on the left-hand column, and then in the middle there, question 2, no. This was a kind of a no. I'm not interested in that. Actually, let me go into in person. There was another option to kind of opt back in person, and you see the numbers there, and then at the far right, this said there, no, we're not interested in the virtual option that you offered. We would like a different virtual option. And my assumption there when the secondary 6 to 12, when you see 22 and 36 people, is they're saying they want synchronous, similar to the way it is now. That's the way I interpreted that. in terms of that. But they're saying they're not interested in coming in person. They're not interested in what we propose. They want probably the other model or a different type of instructional model. So if you take all of the yeses from question 1 and the question 2 no's, please put me in person. You add those together here to get a total number and a total percentage that we're reading as 93.6, 94.4, 92.5, 90.8, so to speak, saying they want to come in 5 full days from 2 different questions. So almost 95% there at the 4 or 5, but definitely over 90 in all levels, which paints a clear picture for us of what our marching orders should be. But at the same time, not losing sight of additional 10% of students or less than 10% of students and trying to meet their needs at the same time, because they're our students and we want to make sure we support them as best we can. But at the same time, we can't overpromise things that we can't do. We're built, we have a budget, we're designed a certain way. And this may be a 2-step in this year, next year, and then hopefully getting back to fully the following year, who knows, but wanted to share the data with you. Let me go through the other 2 categories to see the full picture. So charter in cyber school, so we had 37 out of 196 as shared. So this chart's a little different. So if you go where it says question 1, this was, do you intend to send your child to the building in face-to-face? 17 of the 37 said yes. So that may impact the budget. 13 said no, and 7 said other. They had other ideas of, again, similar things that were there before, or they were going to go to this school or that school. And then if they said no, they dropped down. Do you intend to send your child to one of our models as opposed to a cyber charter or charter? 2 said yes. 11, no surprise, said they're going to remain in their current, and 7 were still undecided. So again, it paints a picture of that. I wish we had a higher percentage, and maybe we can still get that. But again, we're asking for information based upon simply a request at this time, non-binding, nothing, no one's tied to this data. And then finally, our homeschool or private parochial non-pub students, you can see a breakdown of the number of students. And if you look in the 106 box, that's homeschool 20 and private parochial over 86, just to make up there. So similar question 1, do you intend to send your child in to the district 5 days? 13 said yes, 77 said no. They were happy with their current models. Again, 16 or other, which could be still on the fence. And then finally, if students were interested in going to a virtual option with us, 8 said yes. Got off there, 86% said no, they're remaining, and still 5 undecided. So that's a full picture of the responses that helped guide the administrative conversation since you've come in to get us to a point where we've got lots of conversations going on, lots of planning. It's tied into budget and ready and prepared to share the following timeline with you and make sure that the board is good with this general sense of what we're planning to do. So on the top there, we're sharing our results today. This presentation will be shared out with our families tomorrow in our weekly blast, and they'll be able to see the same slide deck that we're looking at. We're going to continue to plan over the next 2 weeks to look at that data. If there's any questions from the board, we'd be happy to take that now and continue, obviously, to work at a 5-day model because it's very clear. But at the same time, still looking at a virtual offering and supporting our students there. But we would love to have as many in person as we can. We're going to collect feedback over the next 2 weeks with our administration. We've got time set up with some teacher groups and our staff to help continue to plan. And that's not just in the next 2 weeks. That'll be over the course, obviously, of the summer as we're building this. In 2 weeks at the workshop, we'd like to present to you what that plan looks like as best we are at that time, and kind of either get a vote and or a thumbs up, thumbs down, we're heading in the right direction. And then the next day, May 28th, we'd like to send out a parent declaration based upon the information that we have and what we're prepared to do based upon another 2 weeks worth of work, and use a 2-week window for parent declarations and ask people as best they can by the last student day to let us know what their intentions are. So that really, when we get to final approval and or confirmation on the 17th at our board meeting, again, it's either thumbs up or a vote, however you want to do that, to know that what administratively and planning we're doing during the summer. So that's kind of a timeline of where what we'd like to bring forward, be clear that when we get to the 17th and have a large percentage, hopefully 95, 98% completion of a declaration, that would make life beautiful for us in terms of planning. My goal would be to not have any July board meetings like we did last year, several. Have the next meeting in August as we would have it. But I really think it would help families set themselves up for success and knowing what's working there. So that's a timeline that we're proposing. And I think we've I think Dr. Frida's heard it many times, but we've kind of ripped through it a couple of times to make sure that we think it's realistic. It gives 2 weeks. We'll provide as much information as we can and doing our best to satisfy and support people's needs. Okay. All right. Next slide. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Farina to talk a little bit about some recent changes. And I will, before she takes over, say that there are changes that have just come out today from the CDC. I want to remind everyone that we don't necessarily follow the CDC right away. It typically goes from the CDC to Pennsylvania Department of Health, and then to Montgomery County, and then we kind of get information from there. But the changes you're going to see today, right now, are from the county. So they definitely impact us as early as tomorrow.
Nice.
Thank you. So, as we've, in this pandemic, as we've talked about, the only constant is change. And we get that information sometimes less than 24 hours and we turn it around. So there is an update from the county. We were notified of that update that effective May 14th, tomorrow, that the county will no longer require masking for high exertion activities. And high exertion as defined, athletics or exercising outside. However, that masking guidance does remain in effect for those who cannot maintain social distancing when you're in mixed vaccinated, unvaccinated groups and indoors. And so we did have the opportunity to have a conversation with some of our administrators previously about high exertion activities. I think with CDC, as Dr. Roach indicated, making a statement, we are talking about masks no longer being required for high exertion activities, sports right now. We will continue the discussion and dialogue around recess. As we always do when we have this information, we talk to our building administrators. When we spoke to them, previously this week, when we knew this was coming, certainly their thoughts are, let's maintain a safe and healthy environment for kids. Active high school athletics looks a little different than recess. Standing in line at the slide may not be high exertion. And we were comfortable with maintaining that masking in an environment like recess and health and physical education. And so we will continue with new information we received today. We will go back and we will have continued dialogue. But right now, this will go into effect, and we've worked with Mr. Kurzweg and notified him that masking will not be required. Our health and safety plan for athletics, as well as our district health and safety plan, says we will align with Montgomery County Office of Public Health recommendations. The statement is just like that, and we have confirmed that this is their recommendation. So we just want to make everyone aware, and we will continue to have dialogue about those other potentially high exertion activities like recess or health and physical education. We also, thank you. You also, and everybody on the screen who joined us tonight, I'm sure has heard that as of May 31st, with the exception of masking, lifting the mitigation orders. So Governor Wolf came out and said, May 31st, those mitigation orders are lifted with exception of masking, where we have to reach a threshold of 70% vaccination in PA in order for masking to be lifted as well. So many people thought that perhaps this meant that all mitigation orders were gone. What we wanted to, and we talked with the administrators, there are several things that are aligned with the governor's orders and those mitigation efforts. And so what we tried to explain on this slide was the difference between those orders and what our responsibilities are under public health code. So as a school district, we have the responsibility to follow all of that. And so if we remember the attestation, which was the guidance for schools on how to address COVID, we had to operationalize a health and safety plan across lots of areas and submit it for approval. We signed that we would do all of those things. And our instructional model and our school closure decision-making was woven in to our use of those mitigation efforts, as well as the acuity, the number of positives and close contacts in the district. And so those things go away May 31st with the governor's orders. So those gathering limitations, only having 50% outdoor, 25%. So all of that dialogue was woven in to that health and safety plan and those mitigation orders. However, public health code, and even our own school district policy about communicable and non-communicable diseases, we have always had to operate in that manner. So regardless of May 31st, the district is still responsible and has always been responsible to follow public health code around the reportable communicable diseases. And Judy, I know you, Judy's like, yep. And there are 73 of them, but we have a responsibility to do that and work with the Department of Health. We do have the responsibility to quarantine, to isolate, and to report. We do it, we've done it. Measles, mumps, chickenpox, those are the kinds of things we do. And believe it or not, things like isolation and quarantine are involved in those as well, if you are unvaccinated. So the misnomer here is that the district doesn't have to do any of those things. That is not accurate. We will continue to have to do all of those things for COVID-19. And the things that are still relevant in COVID-19 are that we have a responsibility for health and safety mitigation efforts. And so when you think about what those are, things like sanitizing, hand hygiene, those types of recommendations. Also, if you look at PDE, they're still also recommending 3 feet of social distancing. And so there is that, the 6 feet, 3 feet, that isn't gone. They're still recommending the 3 feet. And they made very clear to us that during, potentially the school year, there will be times where the Department of Health in Montgomery County will require masking. And so, if we're at the peak of transmission, that may come to fruition again. So those are still loose ends. They haven't formalized that, but what they have done in our pandemic liaison meetings is made it very clear that we will operate very stringently using some of those efforts in the area of COVID-19 that we have applied to other communicable diseases in the past. So some things are not answered, but it would be disingenuous for me to tell you that we may not have to mask again and that quarantine would not be real. Those things are still very real after May 31st. And so we just wanted to make it clear to the board and to our community that those things are still in play for the district moving forward.
Thank you, Dr. Farina. What you see on the screen here is it's a picture of my screen on a call today with Dr. Arkush, because she put up the information that a little bit of what Dr. Farina mentioned, but the vaccination information tied to the Governor Wolf's 70% of vaccinations for the adult age people. This is simply only county information, but if you look in the upper right corner, it says countywide vaccination, all providers, and then the total 54.87%. So that's the total percent of the percent total population. This is 54.87. That's the current Montgomery County percentage of vaccination. So we're trying to get to 70, although it's not by county, it's by state. So I just wanted to put it in perspective in terms of the information that's shared there, that as a county, we're at 54.87% vaccinated. So that's definitely getting us closer to 70. And if every county can get there, that really helps the mitigation move up. So a lot more numbers on the screen that may be of interest, but that's the one, at least I wanted to highlight of the information that's there. Tied to that, I am excited to share that we are going to host our own vaccination clinic in partnership with the Giant Company and Giant Pharmacies. That this has come through the IU has provided this contact, and Mrs. Fisher and I have started to work with the Giant Company. We have 2 dates identified on Tuesday, May 25th and Tuesday, June 15th from 3:30 to 7:30 at the middle school. It is open to all community members ages 12 and up. It is the Pfizer 2-dose sequence. It is at no cost to the district. We have to provide tables, chairs, space, and some volunteers, which I've already exceeded my volunteer limit with just the administrators and folks that wanted to help out. So well, obviously, if we have more volunteers, that'd be great. But this is simply to welcome people in, traffic control, that type of thing. We're hoping to get the link tomorrow from them. It's very similar to probably if everyone has gotten their vaccine. You go in, you click on it, you pick a time. There's some paperwork and information. If you are under 18, you do need a parent or guardian to walk you in and get you signed up. You don't necessarily need to be escorted to the table, but you're obviously allowed. But it's an excellent opportunity. You may see these popping up in other school districts, or some of them have done that. We finally connected with the Giant Company and pharmacies and have this set up. In addition, tomorrow, if we don't have the link, as soon as we get the link, we will send it out for people to start to sign up. If you don't, like, if you're not able, someone had talked to me and said, I can't make the June 15th, and this may not be the clinic for you based upon the 2-dose sequence to stay on par there. But the additional information that's coming out from the county, Dr. Farina, was it 7? Across the county, I think it's 7 different sites that the county has to sign up for other dates. So that's another opportunity. In our Friday update, Mrs. Gum has continued to put information out about from St. Luke's or from Lehigh Valley, and really trying to get the information out for vaccinations in hopes that we will be able to have this offering. But again, this is not simply, there's no card for just an Upper Perk student or family member. It's open to the community. So we will share the link, and then people can sign up, and they will also take walk-ins, but that also depends upon how many. So that, as I was speaking with the gentleman, he said at whatever recent clinic they did, they knew they had 280 people coming. So they thought out 310 shots, and they actually were able to use the large majority there. They don't want to waste, but that is an option as well. I would say if you're interested, then please sign up. I know June 15th is just the last teacher day, or the day of 190, or just after students. But if you're able and it's close here, that would be a great opportunity for anyone. Voluntary, no pressure, just trying to continue to support our community and the options that are out there. But we'll continue to provide that for anyone. Other than that, a couple look aheads. So I'm looking ahead to not next Wednesday, the following Wednesday. There was a Special Olympics internal for Upper Perk, is the county Special Olympics. That's usually a highlight of my year, and Dr. Farina as well. Down at Souderton was not able to be put on, but the team here and the special ed teachers and our paraprofessionals were committed to having our students have a great experience. So that's on Wednesday, May 26th in the morning time at the high school, and we're looking forward to that and supporting our students. So that's going to be a great opportunity for us to see some kids. Also want to share that high school graduation is still being planned for Keeney Stadium on Thursday, June 10th at 7 p.m. Dr. Carpenter met yesterday with Zoom via Zoom to meet with the 12th grade students and to go over a lot of end of year information, not simply just graduation, but a lot of graduation information. So just a quick highlight: the last senior school day is the 1st of June, the 2nd to the 7th are finals, then 8th and 9th are graduation practice, and they will be graduating on the 10th. Beautiful night, hopefully, at the stadium. If any board members interested in being a part of that, we're making the assumption that Mrs. Cunningham would be there for part of the speeches, and that we have 2 other board members that have graduating students. So we figured they would be there. Any other board members that wish to be a part, please just let me know so we can plan accordingly. But that invitation from Dr. Carpenter is available. Okay. Next, I want to share, and I think I put this in the board update, that we do have groups that are kind of chomping at the bit to get going for next year, and that's great. The marching band has reached out and put together a nice health and safety plan for rehearsals beginning in June at some time, and then traveling through the summer into band camp in August, as well as working with Mr. Kurzweg on a request for some off-season athletic training workouts. So I shared basic information with the board, but sharing that we're in support of that. I did touch base with Mr. Summers in terms of if this is a votable thing, if it needs to be voted on. He said it didn't need to be voted on, except as long as whatever current health and safety plan we're under, that's the guidance they should be following. And if there's anything that needs to be adjusted, we would communicate that with the board. I think there's a request for starting it a little sooner than 6/14, but that's a date that we felt was a safe date after school. Again, continue to promote that we're trying to get through to June 11th. We want to keep school open every single day that we can and keeping things going. So the 14th would be that target date to kind of have that nod that we're going to move in that direction with off-season and following whatever health and safety plan and protocols that are in the current plan and that have been successful for us through athletics as well as for the band. But excited that people want to get going again and be a part of that. So that's kind of the update on that. And then finally, another plug for our summer learning opportunities, the different camps that are there. I know right now our teachers are working with our principals to communicate with families and invite them to camp. And this is a part of that ongoing summer learning, including students that are, I think, if they're ready to learn, that may be going to camp in August, which may not be the best for them, but I'm sure that it's needed based upon it, whether there's learning loss, and we're trying to really close gaps and get kids excited about coming back to school. So that information is out there. If there's interest, please follow up with the principals, but I know they're working on the lists of students that they are identified as being a part of that. And then finally, this is the thunder that you stole. I was just gonna,
Sorry.
no, it's all good. I was just gonna say the same thing, that the Virtual Arts Festival information is on the website. The link is actually, if you hover over link, I believe it's in there. Yep, it's in there under link. And actually, there's a concert tonight at the high school. There's a concert tomorrow night that's being recorded, I believe, as well as concerts in June. Yes, the first week of June at the middle school. That will all be added to this page as we get going. And I know the music teachers are excited about actually getting their full group together on a stage, or I think even the middle school is using the stage and the pit to socially distance. So working through those details and balancing with what Dr. Farina mentioned, those capacity levels inside. We weren't able to open the doors for many visitors, but I know the seniors, we were able to help them kind of have a senior night with their parents. But the other groups I know are recording that, so that'll be added to this page as well. So we'll continue to promote and push that out. So that, I believe, is the end of the report.
Thank you. Sorry I stole your thunder.
No, it's all good.
It was fun. It was fun to watch.
It's great. It's great to have have the option for our students to do that.
Exactly.
Next year we'll be back in a normal arts week.
Yes.
You know.
Can I just interject 1 second?
Yes, yeah, sure.
So she may have stole your thunder, but it wasn't recorded. So I just want to know that it was not recording for the beginning of the meeting. So I don't know if we want Melanie to read that again.
I'll pass.
I think she should read it again.
If we want to record it.
I did actually write it out today for a switch. Okay, I would like to go back over the budget.
Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry about that.
So my last comment, first I talked about Art Week.
It's hard to hear you.
Feel your thunder for a long time.
Oh, I'll mute.
From facilities, I said we had a
Thank
mowing issue and we're working on that. So if you see some high grass, don't get worried. We're working on it. And I had given my own personal, and I'm saying the district's condolences to Michelle Filippo and her family. Michelle works at the chamber, works with our Perk Up for Education and closely with the district. And she lost her son a couple weeks ago. So I just wanted to mention that. And also, I wanted to make something clear with the agenda this evening. You'll see a motion for a 2% tax increase for next year's preliminary budget. This was not a recommendation from the Finance Committee. Finance Committee believes we need more information after this crazy year to make an informed decision on what the tax hike, if any, will be. There is no stub ratio this year, so 0 equals 0. I want to make it really clear that this figure will probably not be the final one, but we needed to pass a preliminary budget this meeting, so there's time for it to be available publicly for 30 days. The Finance Committee is awaiting some more information on an estimated outcome on this year's budget to actual figures before we will be willing to make a recommendation. I believe I can speak for the board that we're hoping that this 2% can go down, and please stay tuned. And that was all I had to say. Okay, so we'll move on to our student representative to the board report. Do we have Enoch and Ethan here? I hope. I see Ethan.
No Enoch tonight, just me. So next week is the last week of spring sports for the regular season, and the playoffs will follow. Baseball, softball, and some select few track and field athletes are contending for district and playoff spots. Keystone exams are starting next Monday. This includes Algebra 1, Biology, and 10th grade for the English. And the AP tests are already underway, and they're going throughout this month. 5/18 is a flexible instruction day for high school students. Actually, I think the whole district, and an in-service day for teachers. And 5/19 in-person Wednesday for students and teachers, and 5/31 is an in-service day. And June 1st will serve as the final day for seniors, and their exams will be June 2nd to the 7th. And underclassmen finals are from June 8th to the 11th. Finally, graduation practice will be June 8th, 9th, and 10th in the morning. Hopefully a little less if Dr. Carpenter lets us off. And June 10th is the date for graduation, and June 11th is the rain date. So I know I can speak for all the seniors. We're looking forward to it. So thank you. That's all.
Thanks, Ethan. And do we have Enoch on here?
He wasn't able to make it.
Oh, okay, no,
Yeah.
okay. All right, well, thank you, Ethan.
You're welcome.
Next, we'll move on to our solicitor's report, and any Sunshine Act announcements. Kyle?
Thank you, Madam President. For my report tonight, I'll just give an update to something I mentioned at a prior meeting to the board, which was that the U.S. Supreme Court, since our last meeting, heard argument in the case of BL versus Mahanoy Area School District, a case involving the authority of school districts to govern or take disciplinary action against students based on conduct or speech that occurs off campus. I listened in on the argument, and the justices seemed perplexed to a degree as to what they're going to do in the case, but they have to make a decision, and we will likely receive that decision in June. So it certainly could have an impact on the district in terms of our authority to take action when certain student expression that occurs off campus impacts the school environment and what our rights are. Likely, based on the decision of the Supreme Court, our policy committee will need to look at some of our policies that we have regarding student expression and student off-campus conduct to explore and consider whether we need to make any changes based upon if there are changes in the law. And then the only other item is just really a follow-up to what Mrs. Cunningham said in terms of the proposed final budget. The school code, section 687 of the school code does require that the board adopt a proposed final budget at least 30 days prior to the adoption of the final budget. That proposed final budget that is adopted or is on the agenda this evening needs to be made available to the public for their inspection, for them to review it. It needs to be adopted 30 days before the final budget is adopted, and then made available for inspection for a period of at least 20 days before the final adoption occurs. The school code specifically says that the board may give appropriate consideration to making changes to that final budget from the version that you adopt today. Certainly, I think the intent of the proposed final budget is to make the community aware of the budget that the board is contemplating, that the district may consider passing, and making them aware certainly of the expenditures of how funds are being allocated, what departments, what programs funds are being given to, and then of course what the tax rate is that's going to be established. There are differing viewpoints as far as whether a tax rate may be adjusted from the proposed final budget to the final budget. It's my opinion that that tax rate may be adjusted in either direction. However, there are certainly opinions out there that it's not a good idea to increase the tax rate from your proposed final budget to your final budget. And the rationale for that is that we're advertising a budget, we're making it available to the public. If the tax rate were to be increased at the vote for the final budget, it could certainly appear to the public as this was something that they were not given any notice about, and that it was done at the last minute. So I certainly not recommend increasing the tax rate from the proposed final budget that is approved this evening, but it's certainly within your right to pass either an equivalent, have the final budget be the same as the proposed final budget, or certainly to have a decrease in your tax rate from the proposed final budget tonight to the final budget in June. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle.
A quick question for Mr. Summers. Do we need to inform of the informational session that we had last week, or is that only exec sessions?
No, there's only a need to announce executive sessions.
Okay, thank you. Just want to be clear.
Okay, so we will move on. Thank you, Kyle. We will move on to approval of agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, approved, agenda is approved. Next, we'll have public comments on action items. Do we have any public comments on action items tonight?
We do not have public comments on action items.
Okay, great. So we will move on to the approval of the minutes from the April 8th, 2021 board meeting.
So moved.
Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next, we will do presentations, discussion, a motion to approve the following board policy revision, adoptions and repeals. First read, attachment B that we had. And first would be number 214, class rank, repeal and replace.
So I can share.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So this is our first read for class rank policy 214. We've actually talked about it several times, both in policy and at board workshop. I shared it out with the board, and there are significant changes to the proposed revision to policy 214 that is up for vote. Not today, but in the next time. I specifically want to draw everyone's attention to the fact that beginning in the class of 2024, which is our currently sitting seniors, we would not formally calculate and publish class rank. However, we would provide it to parents upon request. We also provide it to colleges for the purposes of scholarship, enrollment and entrance, and to other entities that would request it with parent consent. What is notable in the change in the proposed policy 214 is no longer, if you're no longer publishing class rank, first and second, valedictorian and salutatorian are not the way that we honor high-performing students. So this recommendation to transition to this proposed policy would incorporate a loud system. And if you think about college, magna cum laude, summa cum laude, those types of things. That recommendation stems from the reality that students in a vocational program do not have the same ability to capture a GPA as our students who attend the homeschool full-time. And so in an effort to be inclusive and honor all students for high academic performance in those areas, the recommendation came from the committee. There was much dialogue and much concern. We did make some revisions back in policy based on some community and board feedback, which made class rank available to families, which it originally was not. And so I say all this, I encourage you to read it. Ms. Pennypacker and I certainly can answer any additional questions that board members may have on the proposed policy 214. Sure. One of the questions or one of the concerns that we heard from community members and board members was how senior speakers would then, if we're not doing valedictorian and salutatorian, the recommendation of the committee is if this policy is approved, that we would find an accompanying AR, which would spell out the selection of class speakers. Obviously, the outgrowth of that would be directly from our high school administration in what the procedure they would use to avoid some of the concern around it being popularity based, as opposed to, you know, a very holistic approach for kids who perform well across all content, vocational, community service, those types of things. And so we would afford the board that an accompanying AR, which we currently do not have.
Will the AR be ready for the second read?
Thank you, Dr. Farina. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, go ahead. Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you. I have always missed that. Go ahead, Rayanne.
Will the AR be available for the second read? Were you able to hear that?
So
I passed it along, Mrs. Hopkins.
Okay, thanks.
So we can offer a draft of the AR. We would want to make sure that the policy is approved. And there was discussion about the selection of that. We could formalize the process. We would have Dr. Carpenter and his team with Ms. Bast and myself put that together. You know, we could do that if this goes to a second read. Yeah, I would want to make sure that the policy is approved. But we can give an idea what that would look like.
Okay, anyone else have any questions?
The policy was just one page. It was pretty easy to read. I think I did hear, or I did read feedback from community members. So I think it's good. I just would like to see the AR to go with it, but I'll vote for it this time.
Okay. Any other questions?
I just had a really quick question.
Okay.
I see that a guardian or a parent can request it if they want to get the calculated ranking. Can the student request it if they're 18 or it's not spelled out in the policy?
Yes.
Does it need to be spelled out as the student can ask as well as the parents or guardian?
We can say that, but they're accessible upon request by students or parents. And that's, I mean, our access to records is the policy that governs that. Kyle, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I agree. Under the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA, which is discussed in our student records policy, it does state in that other policy that students and parents and students, once the student turns 18, have a right to access all of their records, and this would be a record of the student.
Okay, that answers my question. It's covered in another policy then. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Comments? Okay, so I guess we're having it as a first read for right now. Okay, great. So we'll move on to our second presentation, which is the 2021-2022 preliminary budget presentation, and I will turn it over to Mrs.
Do
Castle.
we have to vote on that motion?
Yeah, do we have to vote on that motion? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry. Hang in there, Sandy.
Make a motion to approve the first read of the board policy 214 class rank.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you very much. And any other discussion on it? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Sorry about that. Now I'll turn it over to Mrs. Castle.
Okay, as mentioned earlier, tonight is the vote for the proposed final budget for the 21-22 school year. I'm going to go over a number of items to highlight the expenditures and the revenues. As we mentioned earlier, here's the timeline. Tonight is the adoption of the proposed final budget. Obviously, there is deadlines by the state because you need that 30-day window between the adoption of the proposed final budget and the adoption of the final budget. So the state guidelines is, obviously by 5/31. Our next public notice of intent to adopt has to be out 10 days before. The budget itself is 20 days before, but the public notice is 10 days before. So then our meeting in June 17th, will adoption of our final budget. Sorry. I wanted to highlight some staffing additions to the budget, although I think I skipped the screen. Sorry, I apologize. I can't see it's not showing up on my, we'll go the wrong way here. Hold on. I can't, there we go. But then you're seeing that too. So why can't we do that? I was doing it from the beginning. Yeah. It's easier if I guess do it this way. So.
And you can hit from current slide if you need to.
Right. So if I hit that instead, but then when I can't. Yep, okay. Oh, I can't, okay, I couldn't see the arrows. I think I should use my glasses, I guess. Full day kindergarten. One of the topics that we've had this year, and it was a decision by the board to implement full day kindergarten next year. Obviously, that has a cost to the budget that we don't have currently. To implement full day kindergarten, this is the estimate that's we have moving forward: 3 new elementary teachers, 2 specialists, supplies, books, technology, and transportation, for a total of $562,538 as an additional expenditure to our budget. There's capital expenses also, and a lot of this has already been discussed in many finance meetings, but this is a recap. So the furniture will come out of capital and will not have an impact on the general fund budget, but it's just listed here for information, just to show you that these are costs for this program. Next, there's staffing additions to the budget. These are also new to the budget, and I tried to summarize. Besides the kindergarten, the specialists, we have a program, autistic support program, that we need to continue as the students age. So we need an additional elementary and a middle school autistic support teacher. With that, our need for paraprofessionals. Usually there's 2 per class, but we're reallocating or realigning the paraprofessionals. So we have 2 new paras in the budget: instructional coach, a network administrator for technology, and another support person. Obviously, with the technology that's put in place this year, it has definitely put a difficulty for a technology team, because everyone it's basically one-to-one district-wide. Plus, we're going virtual and in district, and all the equipment that has been purchased and set up due to COVID. I try to bring those 2 together to summarize it a little bit further. So you can see the staff costs. This is staff costs only, new program costs, and added staff. So together, we're adding a little over $1 million to our current budget for next year's budget, without changing anything, without talking about increases or retirement or anything else. Then there's also contracted services. If you remember, we negotiated, or we did an RFP for transportation services moving into next year. The transportation costs alone, the increase over a current year would be over a normal current year would be over $400 and some thousand. Obviously, this year wasn't normal, so we didn't quite spend as much as we had budgeted. But next year, the anticipation over our current budgeted number is to be over $400,000 more, which it would have been no matter what vendor we use, because additional costs would be incurred, increased pricing, and the structure of our transportation system. Instructional support for building subs, there's a greater need. That cost is also going up. But our day-to-day subs, our long-term subs, we contract that service out, so there is additional costs. Administrators substitute temporary support, and then this year, Doug Hope's put a facilities feasibility study. It's been a few years since we've had one. That's an additional $40,000, but it's neat. Like, we're going through the Giza project currently, and there's more items that need to be listed for the facilities. I know we're looking to do a 5 to 10 year plan, and this would assist in doing that plan moving forward. Our intention is to keep, to maintain the maintenance on our buildings and to make sure we stay up on everything that's needed. We've been able to, fortunately, we've had a capital fund that we've been able to utilize to support the Giza project. Often those projects are covered by borrowing, like another bond issue, but we've had funds available and well planned by the board over time as they've been putting money into capital to support that, because we really don't want to incur another bond issue at this point, but we need to do the repairs on the facilities. Charter school impact. Now, this is one I'm hoping that we can turn the corner. The enrollment increases and the cost aren't related. So even though I have them side by side, I want to explain further. The enrollment increases is the increase since March of last year. We usually have 100 students a year. We've been averaging over the last so many years. I budgeted 106. In March, we had 110. So the anticipation was it wouldn't be increasing, not understanding what would happen with COVID, but we're at 196. So my budget the current year is under budgeted by $1.6 million. So we had to increase it. So next year, I'm budgeting just what we have. Usually I have 1 or 2 additional students just in case. I didn't do that because I know some of those, I'm hoping some of those will be coming back. And I know with the survey that was sent out, there's some intentions have been expressed that they will be returning to our district, which will help us tremendously. This cost is having a real impact on the increase in the budget. Now, to bring those three things together that are new to next year's budget, the staffing additions, the contracted services, and the charter school impact alone is 3.4 million. And keep that in mind, that's not including increases, retirement, all the other things that come into play. We've been able to reduce in some areas, but these items alone is $3.4 million. Expenditure summary as a total to move into the new budget is we budgeted by function code or major function code. Instruction, which is all instructional support services, that's your guidance, nursing, psychs, all the staffing for the buildings and the technology. And then the 3,000s is more your student activities and your athletics. 5,000 is your debt service. And the reason that is higher than normal is part of my charter school costs I put into budgetary reserve, because I'm hoping that I can reduce that before our final budget, or at least somewhat, or have a consideration to do that. And we have a finance meeting on Monday night. We can talk about what areas do we think we should possibly reduce, because the fund balance needs are very high moving forward. General fund expenditures, here's a graph. Obviously instruction, if you take instruction, support service, and operations and consider everything, you're over the 90%, which is what we're here for. Educate students, provide services. Revenue. Here's, I have 3 slides on revenue: 0, 2%, and the 3.7%, which is our maximum under the index. Under the 0, we would have a fund balance of $4.5 million, which to me is.
Can you advance the slide? Or what is this one for?
This is for 0.
But you're showing revenue.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Just making sure.
Yes. So 0 millage increase would require a fund balance usage of $4.5 million. That's too high. It's unsustainable, because that would eat up your fund balance in a very short period of time. This is just showing it graphically. As you can see, the local, state, and federal. And I should add, and I'll add it on the next one, the state revenue, we're not predicting much of an increase. The state has not passed their budget, but even on the preliminary numbers for our district, it's a very small increase, and I didn't budget any increase in the basic instructional subsidy, because the prediction is that there really won't be any. I did budget an increase in special ed, a slight increase as they're showing the funds that would come to the district. But other than that, and there's a motion on the board on the agenda later on to secure the transportation subsidy that I do have budgeted. I've budgeted the full transportation subsidy we're receiving this year. We're allowed to do that based on a payment to the contractor, and that comes out under Act 136. Federal sources, one's a little tricky. We do have federal funds. We have COVID funds coming in. The COVID funds that, and we discussed this, I think, at the last finance meeting, what those COVID numbers were, how much we've received, how much we're applying for. And then we have to plan ESSER 3, but those funds can be used over till 2024. And the concern there are one-time funds. So they're not there to support your ongoing expenditures, because they will not be there after whatever you spend up until 2024. And to be honest, we've already allocated almost all the ESSER 1, we have the PCCD grant, and then the ESSER 2 grant. We've just about spent all of those funds. The ESSER 3 is the one that we'll have some discussion on and planning as far as how that'll be utilized. In the ESSER 3, $485,000 is for learning loss. So again, that's the administration will be planning how to best utilize that. But please keep in mind, all of those federal funds coming through COVID are one-time funds. Once they're gone, they're gone. And so you have to be very careful what you're using them to support. So what you can see with a 2% millage increase, we still need $3.7 million from the fund balance. So the question would be, that's a very large amount. We've never tried or looked at or budgeted to utilize an amount that size of amount. The only other possibility is to try to reduce some expenditures. Like I said, one of the ones I really would like to take a look at and talk to Dr. Roach about what we can do with the charter school, because that definitely has an impact. And then any other areas that, we can discuss that, and that could be part of discussion Monday night. And then here's it graphically. As you can see, obviously local has most of the revenue comes from the local sources. State, unfortunately, we're not seeing very much of an increase in any direction for the state. Federal, some of that is one-time money, so we just have to be careful. And the rest, of course, is fund balance. And the 3% I'm showing would have a $3 million fund balance if we did 3.7. 3.7 is the maximum index that's allowed for our school district, since we opted out of looking for exceptions, knowing that we wouldn't utilize them. We just would have to look at expenditures. So even that is higher than we have ever used in the past. And then this is looking at it graphically. I do want to point out a few things. So in the past, there are times I've been a little conservative on the revenue. It's difficult to anticipate. I've made every attempt to make it as accurately or to actually project it as best I could, so I could increase that revenues number to try to reduce any need for the fund balance. So increase, and you have to remember last year, going into the budget, we were recommended, and basically just statewide, some areas we needed to reduce. Nothing was happening. I mean, no one was going to be buying or building onto their house at that time. They weren't making any changes. Earned income tax had dropped because people were being either laid off or not paid or different circumstances. So we went with the recommendations that were given to us. We reduced the EIT in our current budget. Transfer tax was a little lower than I would have normally put in. Interest, I don't even want to talk about interest. We can't meet interest. But those first three items in this year's and next year's budget, I have raised them to a level that I think definitely is attainable, and it is more than in our current budget. I think in our current budget, I will be reaching the earned income tax as budgeted and surpass that, but I will show that Monday also in the estimates that you're looking for as far as revenue and expenditures. Now, one of the problems is interest, and that's a loss of revenue. So we're lucky if we hit 50,000 this year. We have 90 in the budget. I think we're lucky if we hit 40. 2 years ago, we hit 450,000. So you can imagine that kind of impact to the budget to lose that level of revenue. We predicted losing it this year. Moving forward, we hope things would change, but it will not be changing for a while. Student activity admissions, we reduced that because obviously we didn't have admissions. I didn't take it all the way down into next year. I really don't know what that's going to look like, but we'll be fully back. I didn't want to anticipate that we would totally, but we could look at that. Tech fees, we made a decision not to charge tech fees for next year. So by not charging, that's a loss of $60,000. And then rentals, our rentals are down. I'm not taking all the rentals out, but they have decreased. I know we will be looking at the policy and then looking forward to what happens. You have to remember one thing though, if we rent the turf fields, those rentals are eventually in transfer capital fund to support the turf fields. So it'd be great if that goes up because whatever funds do come in would be transferred into capital to support that endeavor. Contributions and donations will be down. We're currently in agreement with St. Luke's that they provide our training services, but they also provide in the first 2 years and a little bit in the third year of that program that they would provide $17,500 to us, $15,000 to support whatever was appropriate and which we used for the athletic facilities, and then $2,500 for training supplies. And then they do have, which wouldn't show here, there's a $1,500 that goes to the foundation. So they will continue the last two, but the other contributions will no longer continue starting next year. So I wanted to show you that because I really made an effort to, no, I can't see it, to try and bring our revenues as close as I could. Now, just doing it overall. So we're looking at a 5.67% increase. I was looking at and you'll see going down, you see the Western Center, there's an increase in the cost for our students going to the Western Center. Actually, their budget was 5.37 that was passed by their board. So as you can see, it's similar to the Western Center. Our salaries, these are our major increases in total. So this includes all those additional staff or additions, contracted services and so forth, is $4.4 million. Yes, I mean, our major increases you can see are actually greater than the increase in the total budget because of different other areas that were reduced when we went through. But again, it's a 5.67%.
Sandy, just one point though, with the 87,000 for the Western Center,
Yes.
wouldn't that actually be, that it would be actually a decrease of 20,000? Because we gave over, the Western Center gave back almost 100 some thousand.
Well,
We didn't use last year, so that would be
but
obviously.
that's a normal, and that shows up as revenue and not as an expense. So you're correct, money that comes back, but can I tell you, we have not received those funds as of this time. I really don't know what the.
I'll yell at Donna for you.
Thank you. Because usually I have to send her an email reminding her several times.
I'll see her next coming Mondays.
Okay, so you can tell her, when's that distribution occurring? But even so, that happens at the end of the year. So if there's leftover, kind of like for us, if there's leftover funds, it goes into our fund balance. Okay, but in this case, they do have an increase in their budget. Now, this is, I show this each year just because of questions regarding what does it mean if we increase or if there's 0, 1, 2, 3, or the maximum of the index. This shows the impact it has on the taxpayers at a median or average assessed value. Now, I will say today I received the new median for Berks County and late last week for Montgomery. I didn't update it, but it's almost no change. I mean, Berks is instead of 1015 is 101. So it dropped a little bit in their median assessed value. And Montgomery went up slightly, but not very much. And then, whoops. Nope, wrong one. So then just to make it a little bit clearer on the revenue, the need for fund balance at 1%, it would be 4.1 million, 2%, 3.7, 3%, 3.3, and 3.7 max at 3,100,000. And the final budget approval is June 17th. I'm concerned, to be honest, and I expressed it at the finance meeting, for the level of fund balance that we're looking to possibly utilize to balance the budget. I think it's higher than we should consider using, but the only recourse is to, sorry, Kyle, to increase the percentage for the tax increase to help reduce it at least to bring it to 3, or to decrease our expenditures. Which then the question is, what is the level of fund balance that the board would be comfortable in utilizing from our fund balance? So that's something, again, we'll be discussing Monday evening. I will have a projection of this year. I have to say, though, this year is difficult because of the COVID funds coming in, the extra expenditures that we're incurring due to COVID. It's just causing some issues. And then there's other expenditures that we're not incurring, such as transportation, because we're not providing, obviously there were no field trips this year. We didn't transport up until January 19th except for special ed. For our regular students in public education, we transferred non-public. So there's a number, but of course, as we'll see later on in the agenda, we're looking at making a payment so I can receive my full reimbursement for next year by making a payment less their variable costs. So a lot of moving parts in this budget, and I feel for you because there's a lot of things. You've spent a lot of time taking all this in, understanding, looking at the finances, asking questions, and it's just a difficult year. If I can answer any questions, I'd be happy to.
Thank you, Sandy. Anyone have any questions? I hope to see everyone at the finance meeting Monday night. Would be really great.
I just had a quick question.
Go ahead, Karen.
Sandy, when was the last time we actually used any money from the fund balance for the operating budget?
It's probably, I would look back, Dr. Drake, but it's probably been about 6 years that we've actually had to use any. I think it's only once in a number of years. And the reason being, when a budget's put together, it's a budget and it's an estimate. And then there's the things that we do constantly either during the year to try to reduce the cost at different levels. And a lot of things occur that, that we're fortunately like refunding a bond issue, reducing some of the items for last year, we took a premium holiday for benefits. A number of things can occur that helps reduce those costs during the year, and that's our job, to try to bring it down. I can't anticipate all of them. Again, like this year, let's say, the transportation costs are less than we're projecting. There's another item that's occurring that we're receiving some, reimbursement for medical, which affects my revenue side, or I should say reduces my expenditures, doesn't really affect my revenue side, but it helps reduce the expenditures. But in another area, it's reducing some available dollars that are in our benefits. But in the overall expenditure, it has an effect. So there's a lot of things that come into play. When you do the budget, it's to be, it's accurate as it can be, as you know, and have probably seen in the past. And Mrs. Cunningham goes through it thoroughly. Is a big book that identifies every salary for every individual, all the benefits, and then all the requests that are budgeted. Same with software and items or technology items that are needed. Sometimes we decide to put something off because we feel like it's an expenditure that can wait and we're not going to put it in play at this time. So there's a lot of things that we try to reduce. Plus, as you said, when did we use it? The other thing is increase in revenue. If the, real estate transfer tax comes in higher, the earned income tax comes in and this, higher than expected. I mean, those estimates are based on 5 years of data. And then also we use Berkheimer for their earned income tax to do their projection from the points that they have because of the information that they contain. So there's some areas there. Interest the 1 year was great. And then of course this year it's not there. The taxes. So last year, if you remember, we put in place that basically people can pay to December with almost no penalty because of COVID. And because it was predicted that our real estate collections would be down, we budgeted like 95.5%. Well, everybody paid, the normal amount was paid. So I increased that percentage to 96 for next year. So there's a lot of things that come into play where additional revenue or reduced expenditures could occur. So we have not used it. You are correct. We have not used that fund balance, but we haven't, last year was, 2 million. We're looking at, 3 to 4.5 million.
So just back to my question. So it was at least 6 or 7 years since we used it.
Yeah, I could get that.
Since we ever actually had a deficit.
Yes, I mean, I could get that
spending.
for you, or it
Okay.
wasn't, it was just the use of fund balance. It wasn't really deficit spending, but it was the need to use the fund balance as budgeted.
Yeah, sorry for my
That's all
terming
right.
as a non-financial person. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Carrie, according to my records, we used it one time for about $36,000, and that was over 10 years ago before I got on the board.
So I was pretty close. I knew it was several years back.
$37,263.
There you go.
11/12. And I think to Carrie's point and to Rayanne's point, I mean, it has been a great number of years since we've had a shortfall. And Sandy, of course, I appreciate all the hard work you've done for the district, keeping us in a good financial position. But, looking back through the years, it seems that every year we do have a surplus. Whether it's $1,746,000, 3.5 million, 1 million some, 4 million some, and I know that we get to put that money, we either use it in capital, stick it in capital or do things like that. But my concern is, and I'm sure I'm not the only one with this, is that, in these COVID times when a lot of people are struggling, it's hard to justify it when a lot of years, well, not a lot of years, we're on a real strong run where we always wind up with extra at the end. I mean, not to, you know, be a ball buster, but I mean, that's kind of how I look at it.
Well, that's hopeful. I mean, in most districts, you'll see that same thing occurring. Actually, some districts budget for funds to be used to put into capital. We have been fortunate, and last year, you know, COVID was good and it was bad. I mean, having those extra funds we put into capital, and we're using for the Giza project. If we didn't have those funds to transfer, we would have to either look at borrowing or transfer more money from the fund and reduce the fund balance even further. You have a number of capital items that need to be taken care of. And the thing is, you have to plan for them. I know, Mr. Kenwood's looking at that 5 or 10-year plan. With the amount of commitments that we've made, we've reduced. I mean, it was great. We had like about a few months ago, 14 million in our capital account just because we transferred. We had money left over from the building. You've done a great job in managing those funds with the facilities committee, puts a lot of time in and analyzing what's needed, what should come next. There's careful planning, but it's down to 3.7. The commitments are already made and bringing that down to 3.7. I'm hoping this year, no matter what, I was hoping to make some recommendation to transfer additional funds from the fund balance. We have some committed funds that maybe we can move, because I would say to you on the horizon is a number of capital items, roof at the, some roofing areas and some other items that we really need to attend, that we will need to attend to. It's a plan. Once you have that 5-year plan, you'll be able to look and probably be strategic about it. If those funds aren't available, you would have to look at borrowing. Remember too, you reduce your fund balance to a certain level, you lower your bond rating, then you're paying more for the bonds that you're borrowing. You're increasing the need for funds to support those bond issues. So, it's just careful planning for what you want to do in the future, not today, but later. So it's over time. So yes, we've been very fortunate to have some funds left over. Almost every district does if they're budgeting appropriately, because during the year you look at ways, what can I reduce? What can I do to make a difference? How can I lower that expenditure? But going into the budget, our budget is extremely detailed. Of course, anyone's welcome to look at it, but that's identifying all the areas. I put it this way, there's no fluff that's listed in there. We just look at ways we can reduce it during the year, and then increasing revenue. And the reason I was showing you those revenue increases, I want to say, look, I'm trying to make it as close as I can to predict based on the last 5 years. Actually, I have about the last 8 years, but you try to use that 5-year look back. But again, I think some districts are concerned this year. Well, a lot of districts are concerned. I've been on calls with them that COVID is going to cause, the COVID funds is going to cause an issue, because districts are going to have fund balances that are temporary. Boards are going to look at that. Oh, look, well, we have this, fund balance because of COVID funds, and then those funds go away, and then there's a gap. So it's careful planning. But I have to say, when that issue occurred, back in 2007, I think the board here did a great job in planning and not utilizing those funds for ongoing expenditures that occurred back then. Districts ran into problems. We too had to cut back. We actually reduced a program or two, but we were careful. And so the fear is that same thing may happen. So a lot of planning is going on to use those funds appropriately. Yes, maybe some of them will show up in the fund balance, but it's a temporary change, because you won't have those funds moving forward, and to spend it carefully. So I think if you think about it, what you've been able to do and those careful decisions and moving that money into capital is allowing you to fund your Giza project by your capital funds. Almost everyone, and if you can remember, they spoke to us about borrowing. And they gave us several options, and we said, no, we're not borrowing. Our intent is to use our funds. That's what we built the capital for, because borrowing impacts the taxpayer by, the need to actually pay those issues at a level, and sometimes causing tax increases for that purpose.
No, and I can appreciate, I can appreciate all that. And I appreciate, of course, all the work that you've done, for the district. But one of the things I don't want to have happen, and I just have to say this, is I don't want us to be in a situation where, say,
We lost your mic.
Sorry, Mike.
Okay, since Mike brought up, can I speak?
Go ahead.
Okay, while we're waiting for Mike to, I'll say right now, I am not in favor of it. I understand the concept.
We can't hear you, Keith.
You can't.
We can't hear who's ever talking.
Can you hear me now?
No.
I think everyone in the room has to mute in order for us to be able to hear you at home, Keith.
Okay. let me mute.
Hang on, we're getting Keith connected the right way.
I like Dr. Drake said he couldn't hear him. When he said, didn't hear me?
I could hear you through someone else's microphone. So it sounded like Charlie Brown's teacher a little
Yes,
bit.
good.
That was funny too. If he's talking, I still don't hear a thing.
Yeah,
I understand the concept.
they can't hear you still. Here, I'm just gonna give him my headset. He can speak through my thing. Thank you.
Hang on, second of technical difficulty here.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay. As I was saying a minute ago, I'll say right now, I'm not in favor of this 2% for some of the same reasons that Sandy had said that she revised her revenue estimates. You know, Sandy's done a great job trying to do all these estimates, you know, these budgets over the years. But this year is an extraordinary year. You know, it's out of the normal. I understand we've talked about lost revenue, you know, the past few meetings also. I understand the concept of that. But over the past year, we've had our community, a lot of the people have had reduced incomes or lost their incomes. So if we can do a zero increase this year, I'm all in favor of it. So we have time to let our community sort of recover and get back on track. How many of our local businesses have seen a drastic drop in income? You know, right now you're seeing a lot of home sales at exceptional prices, but that can't be continued either. You know, for right now, I think we should use the part of the fund balance to pay this deficit. It's not a good practice to be in, and thankfully we haven't been doing that over the years, but extreme times call for extreme measures sometimes. Thank you.
I guess my concern in moving to next year is there is a decision to add programs above our normal budget. Even with our normal budget, we would be incurring to use fund balance and looking at it differently, but the decision to add programs and not fund them, I think is dangerous, but that's my thought, so.
Thanks, Sandy. Thanks, Keith. Do we have any other comments? Mike, are you back on yet that you could finish your comments?
Can you hear me?
Is he back on? Okay. Okay, well, we'll have more time to talk about that when we get to that motion. All right. Hearing, oh, God. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Stephen.
Just one other point to bridge off of Mike. Yeah, and I completely agree. Sandy, I completely agree with everything you've done thus far and everything else. And I would not be interested in not funding our new programs. I want to figure out if there's other places we can move dollars from, or, you know, look at, hey, you know, we've been always budgeting X amount of dollars for this program and they've never come remotely close to it. And maybe that's a place we can look at. But at the same time, I mean, the Fed chair said in February that the actual unemployment rate was around 10%. I mean, just in our area alone, that's 2,300 people without jobs, or, you know, maybe there's people stuck in between homes or whatever's going on. But that's the only thing I just want to be really careful of. If we have to make, if we have to do an increase, I'd want to try to minimize it the max we possibly can. Just to be careful of that. I mean, I'm very thankful that, obviously I still have a job or others do, but I know family friends of ours that do not. And it's just a tough place to be, to say, hey, by the way, I raised your taxes, and I know you're saying, hey, you spent a lot less, but it's not always that way. I just think it would be hurtful to them. So let's just try to minimize that the best we can.
Thanks, Stephen. Is there anyone else that I'm not seeing? Oh, Judy, go ahead. I can see you.
I can't hear you,
We
Judy.
can't hear Judy.
We're working
I put
on it.
this on, so wait,
We're
wait,
working
right?
on it today.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Nope, can't hear you. There you go. Something happened.
No? Okay.
Can you hear her now?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. Sandy, for our finance committee meeting on Monday, you will have at least an estimate, correct, of where we're going to be actual to budgeted for this year's balance budget, correct? All right, because it's almost impossible to really be able to make a decision without those numbers. If we're going to have a $3 million surplus or no surplus, that's a huge difference. So if you could just do the best estimate you can for Monday on the actual versus budgeted for this year, it'd be really, really helpful.
I'm working on that currently. As I said, the one area that's difficult is the COVID funds. But no problem, I will have it Monday.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Judy. Thanks, Sandy. Anyone else? I see Mike's back on there. Mike, do you have more comments to make? Since we lost you.
There you go. Technological errors. These things will happen. No, there we go. Sorry about that. What did I miss? No, I was just saying, the only thing my concern is, obviously we want to be careful with the budget, but we also don't want to, because we have at the end of the year, a lot of times had a surplus, but sometimes we've cut things. And I'd hate to see us cut things when we wind up with a surplus again at the end of the year. So just something for us all to be, cognizant and aware of. You don't want to be preemptive with stuff if it turns out that you don't have to be. So to Judy's point, I think it'll be really helpful to find out what that number is going to look like as far as what we're going to wind up with for this year. So thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Keith, can you mute? Could be. Okay. All right. So unless we have any other comments, we will move on. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, Dana.
And revenue.
Here, Dana.
versus the
There he goes.
increase in programs. To get a comparison where the deficit is coming from.
Yeah, no. So, we're increasing just having our total expenditures alone over our current year, and the lack of a large, an increase in revenue. So just, retirement alone, our normal increases in salary based on our settled contracts, and then healthcare costs. There's increases there. The charter school cost is really affecting us. And hopefully if we can maybe even reduce it, I don't know, 20, that would be phenomenal. That's having just a huge impact on next year. And we don't know. I mean, one reason we'll be able to afford this year is because of other reductions, because, I didn't budget for $1.6 million of additional charter funds that are coming out of our current year. So I'm not sure what our current year is going to look like yet, and those things are coming into play. But next year, you added a program, which, everyone 100% agreed that they wanted to do that, but it comes at a cost. So that alone, so I mean, if you raise the 2%, that would cover the increased cost for your kindergarten and possibly the autistic, and that's what it would cover. All the other costs would have to come out of other revenues. So we don't have a level of revenues that will cover all the increases needed in the budget, and therefore the only thing we can do is use the fund balance. We just don't have our level of real estate coming in is just not at the same level that you see with some districts. And it's great. We have a great community, but there's not a lot of industry. So it doesn't bring in that revenue. But in responding to your question, those additional programs are causing one effect on the budget, but it's more the overall cost of all the salaries, benefits, the contracted service, the new bus contract is just having a huge impact on our expenses. And I could I'll put the PowerPoint on the SharePoint because I think it shows a lot of information that you can go back and look at. And if anybody wants any other details, like a breakdown of the revenues, I could easily post that too.
Dana, are you good then?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm just a little concerned that we are.
You can't hear you.
Is going to bite us.
If anybody's talking, we still
About the
can't
idea
hear.
of adding programs that aren't being funded at the moment, pushing the costs down the road is a great concern. Somewhere along the line, we have to pay for them. And maybe a more gradual approach, paying a little bit now will save us from being in a great hole not too far in the future.
Thanks, Dana. Peg, do you have anything to add? Because I didn't see your hand. You're good? Okay. I didn't want to miss anybody. I think Peg was the only one.
I did have one quick
Go
comment.
ahead, Carrie. Sorry.
So I just want to be clear for me personally, and I think probably for many on the board, nobody wants to cut programs and no one wants to fund programs that we don't have revenue for. But when I first ran for the board, and I think it was around the same time Mike ran for the board, we ran when the board at that time was saying we had a deficit, we couldn't afford things, and they started cutting a lot of programs, some language programs, there were some other middle school programs that were cut. And then when we got on the board, it turned out we had a surplus. Even though we cut programs because we didn't have this money, we ended up having a surplus. So what's important is just that we have an accurate budget, not off 5% or 10%, but what is it? What is it really accurate? And then from there, you can know what your priorities are and where you should spend the money. So that's why I was asking about, did we ever actually have that negative situation? And again, to my recollection and what Sandy just said is, it hasn't been for over 10 years that we have less income than expenses for the district. So.
Thanks, Carrie. Peg? Anything?
Yeah, obviously, I'm very concerned about where we're at. And as I've said at finance committee meetings, we keep piling it on. I think we really need to dive in deep and see where we can reduce some things, because we keep adding on, but nothing goes away. And it's just going to keep snowballing. I'm just very concerned about all this.
Thanks, Peg. Shall we move on to, I think that was everybody, unless anybody else has anything?
If I could real quick,
Sure.
I don't know if you can hear me. I just want to kind of reiterate, and I know Sandy said it a couple times, but to clarify, the 2% that's there as a conversation between Kyle and Melanie and myself was exactly to cover the costs at the minimum based upon the conversation, to put a number, because there was a blank there at first. And Kyle had suggested that that not be the case moving forward on the agenda. So this discussion there was on that 2% number to cover roughly $700,000 in new revenue to cover the costs of the program and the need for the teachers that were there, because that is reoccurring regardless of what else happens. Those numbers were reoccurring. So that's the clarification. We're clearly seeing the conversation here and the concern. We have work to do. We have information that's going to come on Monday, but I would heed Kyle's advice in terms of whatever is passed tonight and then where we're going from there. Moving forward, we have a month or so to adjust that. His advice is not to go up, but to go down if that's the case through that work. So hopefully that pays attention to what this is not the be all end all final. There is time to work on that to get to that point moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? If not, I will move us forward to old business. I had a note that said cost of contract, but now I don't know which contract. Anybody?
That was a question from Mrs. Hopkin about the cost of the Act 93 contract, which was put in for multiple weeks in the board update and provided. I know Sandy had touched base with Mrs. Hopkin to make sure she knew exactly what she wanted, and we did provide that several weeks for the board.
Thank you. I'm glad somebody can read my notes. Okay, so now we'll move on to new business. Personnel report.
Melanie, can I make a motion to approve the entire personnel report as presented?
Second that.
Okay, so that would be,
Takes us all the way to action items.
okay, that would, all the way to action items?
Yep.
Okay. We'll get to that. Okay, I have a first and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, all of them are approved. Thank you very much.
Melanie, if I could I make a motion to approve action item A as proposed?
Second that.
Okay, discussion. So that's a motion to approve the Upper Park School District 21-22 proposed final budget in the amount of $70,431,632 with a millage increase of 2%, and to allow for discussion over the next month and authorization for official advertisement of its availability for public inspection at the following areas until June 17th, which are here at the Ed Center and on the Upper Park School District website. Any discussion?
Here's one.
Steve, go ahead.
Just so everyone's aware then, we can go down on the 2%. This is not locking us in at 2%. This is just to meet the deadlines.
Thank you. Anyone else? I don't see anyone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Thank you. Motion passes. We'll move on to, I'd be looking for a motion to approve item B, the following banks to be designated as official depositories of school funds for 21-22.
Melanie, excuse-
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know Key said no, but was there anyone else? Because I couldn't tell.
No.
It's just me.
I said no.
That's what I wondered. Okay,
She voted yes.
thank you.
Sorry about that.
It's a 7-2
Okay.
vote, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
To do items B through.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Keith,
I can just hear a little bit. You're muted.
I make a motion to do items B through I.
I'll second that.
Okay, so that would be the official depositories of the school district for 21-22. So Pennsylvania School District Liquid Asset Fund, Pennsylvania Local Government Investment Trust, QNB, and Univest. Also, where did you say to I?
Aye.
Okay, so special education services for extended school year. Motion to approve agreement from the with the Camp Hill School for a student. A motion to approve the agreement with Camp Hill School for another student. Motion to approve extended school year services with the Chester County Intermediate Unit for another student. Motion to approve meeting with Malagra Kids School, another student. Motion to approve the agreement with the Pennsylvania School for the Deaf for another student. Motion to approve agreement with the Pathway School for another student. Motion to approve agreement with the Pathway School for yet another student. And motion to approve Pathway School for a third student. Motion to approve the waiver of formal hearing agreement for a student whose name is on file at the office of the superintendent. Motion to approve the construction work order 1B with Noresco for the implementation of the identified scope of work in the amount of $7,040,560. Scope of work for construction order 1B would include significant HVAC equipment replacements and building controls improvements at the high school, pumping, valves, and building control upgrades at Marlboro, and boiler replacements and building controls at 4-5 Center. Also, motion to approve the attached stipulation to settle agreement between the Upper Perkiomen School District and Haldeman Brothers, Sumney Town, effective July 1st, 2020. Motion to approve the agreement with Pediatric Therapeutic Services for 21-22 school year at the following rates, which I won't read. Motion to acknowledge receipt of Plan Con K, project refinancing for general obligation note series of 2021, and to enter PDE approval of this document and appended materials into the minutes of the meeting. And also to approve the Upper Perk School District to participate in the Flexible Instruction Day program beginning in the 21-22 school year offered by PDE. Is there any questions, any discussion?
I have a question.
Okay, Ryan, I can't hear you yet, but go ahead.
Can we get a quick summary of the Flexible Instructional Day program? Just a few words on that to explain it to everybody what that is.
Sure. The Flexible Instructional Day program is a program that's been in existence from the Pennsylvania Department of Education for several years, even pre-COVID, that had to do with additional student school days that could count primarily for snow days when we got really, really bad winters. For a while there, it was up to 5 days. So my first year here, we did not apply for that. They would give you 5 days to extend through there, and it was very much a tedious process with lots of lesson plans and different things to get approved for that. Plus, I don't think we had the bandwidth to pull that off at the time. It was a short timeline to turn around, but it has been here. It has been in existence for a while. With COVID, that came into play. If you remember last year, there was a lot of conversations about going to a virtual model, which days would count, which hours would count, the virtual Wednesdays, the virtual, the hybrid, all that type of thing. So this is separate from that grouping. But it does allow us moving forward, not knowing if there's going to be any changes to the ability for us to count hours, because in the elementary it's 900 hours, secondary 990 hours, as well as the 180-day requirements. This allows us to participate in the program and count a flexible instructional day that still meets some criteria, although it's been relaxed, and we're much better poised now with the ability that we've had virtual days. We're actually trying one of these next Tuesday. If you remember, with the closure that we had a couple weeks ago, we are trying that. So this is going to provide flexibility for us, whether we have a really bad winter and we exceed our 3 snow days that are already built into the calendar, or we need to get creative on certain days, similar to an Act 80 day, which is allowed but not in the calendar at the current time. It provides us flexibility moving forward to count a day towards the 180 based upon us having certain criteria, having information posted, work provided for our students and teachers to follow up with that. So we wanted to throw our hat in the ring. I did hear somewhere along the lines that the 5-day cap had been removed. There was additional days added. Someone actually said unlimited, which is a scary thought, but that does provide additional flexibility. So this really just opens the door for us to have some flexibility in next year and moving forward as we plan our calendar. Although all intentions at this point are to maintain the calendar as is, as we have with the 5 days full in. But it provides the ability for us, if there was a certain situation like next week, that we can kind of count a day, having work done and provide that. So that was all of it in short phrase.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Judy has a follow-up question. I think Mike does as well. I see your hand up. So let Judy go first.
I can't hear her.
Hold on, you gotta unmute on your computer too.
That would make sense.
We're getting there, Ray. Hang on.
Oh, we really need to get back to being in person all the way. My follow-up question is, this is a motion to approve us to participate. Are we required as a board to then eventually approve whatever plan you come up with? Or do you just come up with the plan? I'm just curious.
Now, I mean, if it was a planned event months in advance, that may be the case. But let's say we get into a blizzard where we're out 5 days and we're going to use 2 of our snow days. And then we have 3 days where it's not, I mean, people can work from home and or work remotely now that we have the technology, and ask teachers to post by a certain period of time, have work be done, have it submitted by a certain period of time. That gives us the flexibility to count that as a day. That could count as a day if we have certain work taking place. It kind of gives you a little flexibility away from that 900, 990, and 180. That's really the initial intention, which is why they said 5 was the most. So, and I do want to reiterate that we still have three emergency snow days still built into our calendar for next year. So we can still sled and hot chocolate and all that kind of stuff, the important things. But if you think about this year, when we had that closure day around vaccine time, we were able to get creative and have next Tuesday be a day where we still have the in-service going, and we're having that as a flexible day for our students to still count, to not have to come another day at the end of the year to make up that 180.
Okay, good. So you don't have to make up some elaborate plan and bring it to us and we don't have to approve
No,
it.
there is some planning on the teacher side. I mean, I think they're doing a great job for next week in preparation. We gave them obviously a couple weeks notice, but there is a lesson plan template to fill out in case, let's call them the FID police come and the state wants to check out our plans and make sure we're doing what we're saying we're doing. So that's the practice for us next week to try to prepare in the event that we need to use these days. Hopefully we don't need them. But that just provides, I can't see me using more than 5, but who knows?
Mike, go ahead.
I was just going to touch on the snow day. I mean, that seems to be one of the concerns that we hear most as board members. One of the ones I hear most. But if just looking back at this past year, when you threw the kids a snow day, which I thought was awesome and much needed, but then also used it the way we did. Yeah, I'm in favor of it. I like the way it's worked out, and I like the way the administration works it. It's so the opportunity to have those. I mean, I know it's cheesy, it's just a snow day, but I think it's important for those sort of memories. So I like the way that Dr. Roche, the administration, used it. So I'm in favor of it.
All work and no play makes Johnny a dull boy. Anyone else have any comments?
I just agree on the snow day. I mean, kids have to have time to be kids, and some district somewhere got rid of it. Maybe it was New York City. I don't know, but you have to leave that time in. You're only a kid once. And I just hope and pray that next year is more like a regular year and they have regular snow days, just not 20, but at least a few.
Thanks, Gary. Anyone else? All right, seeing no other, I will call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay. Yes, 1 opposed.
Melanie, if I could, can I make a motion to approve action items J, K, L as one?
Second.
That's, by the way, a motion to approve the payment from the district to Coventry, a motion to approve the art and nurse supply bid awards, and a motion to approve the agreement with the MCIU for the E-rate services.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any questions? I have a question. So can somebody tell me what the E-rate services are? I just maybe have a mental block here, but
I'm gonna ask Jim to do that because he works with the E-rate.
Now, if we can get Jim's mic to work for Jim.
Bring me that question again, Melanie.
I just wondered what the E-rate services actually are with the MCIU.
Oh, okay, so MCI.
We can't hear Jim.
One second. Can you hear me now? So the E-rate professional services, they help us navigate all the things that are necessary for all the forms and all the submissions and the proper bidding, and they keep us in line and help us manage that process to make sure that it's a little bit to give, in other words, to get us in good shape that none of our E-rate submissions are questioned and that we get those passed. So there's a lot of overhead and administrative work that goes into that.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Any other questions?
But what is an E-rate?
I think Rayanne said, but what is it? So don't sit down, Jim.
Yes, what is an E-rate?
So, Mrs. Hopkins, that's an excellent question. So E-rate is a federal program that uses federal taxes and excises that go against your cable bill and your telephone bill. It started out with telephony and has become a fund supported by the FCC and the federal government to provide access to schools and libraries and funds for direct access to the internet for students. So the things that are covered by E-rate are things like the WAN services that we have that we lease from Crown Castle between our buildings for our now 2 gig WAN building to building that we just upgraded. They also cover internet access. So we get basically a 50% discount on our internet access once we submit to E-rate and get approved for that E-rate submission. So that's a very significant benefit to the district and funds that come to us. And coming from the private sector, I can tell you, it really cuts the pricing down, by 50%. It makes it very aggressive pricing for us. They also cover other types of items that relate to access for the students, like the wireless in the buildings, the switching in the buildings, the core firewall in the building that gets you out to the internet. So from that perspective, everything related to accessibility to the internet is covered under the E-rate program. You have to apply for it. You have to bid in certain ways relating to that using PEPM, which is a very strict analysis fund. If you pass PEPM bidding and you go through PEPM bidding, that guarantees that you're getting the best rate that you can. And then that's accepted by E-rate for the hardware and types of items that are covered in that. What's interesting about E-rate is it does not cover a lot of the things that we're challenged by relating to cybersecurity. So it covers the main firewall, but it doesn't cover the protection that we would use for virus scanners and for high-end security products that would protect us. Those kind of things are to come. We hope that that's going to happen. And every day they're opening up new avenues. The E-rate and the people that manage E-rate have also recently got involved with helping to support access for low-income families in the home through some other associated funds that are managed by the same provider that manages the E-rate fund. So, or the E-rate process, I should say. So that in short, I hope Mrs. Hopkins answers your question. It's everything that relates to accessibility from within our buildings and provides us internet access and a pipeline to the internet for students. And then Dr. Farina, remind me, I think is it SIPA? What's the we have to sign off that we're SIPA compliant, I believe it is. COPA and SIPA, there's two different compliances that relate to child protection of navigating the internet. So for us to manage and to be involved in that, we need to make sure we have all those other things in place to protect the students. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
That was a really good answer. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so unless there's any other questions, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
No.
Okay. You did get the one opposed. Okay,
Melanie, can I make a motion to approve action item M, the textbook purchases and curriculum materials for the following grade levels?
Second.
any discussion?
I have a comment.
Sure, Rayanne, have a comment?
I'm real happy to see the Ramsey Education Foundation Entrepreneurship Foundations. That is a very good program. I own the individual package for that. And I can't say anything bad about the Dave Ramsey programs. Awesome. Now we need to get the finance ones in.
I remember you telling me about that. That's great. All right, anybody else have any questions?
I just had a comment. Just wanted to say, again, these are the updates recommended from the Curriculum Review Committee. We're now 3 years into I believe it's a 6-year review cycle. So once again, this is something that we had reestablished over the last 4 years to have this systematic review. So we're roughly, I think, halfway through. And again, we strongly recommend to approve these sets of curriculum materials.
Thanks, Carrie. Anyone else comments? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion approved. I will turn it over to Steve Cunningham for our financial reports.
Thank you, Melanie. So if everyone goes to the attachment for the financial reports and goes to pages 22 through 27, these are general fund expenditures. At the bottom of page 27, I'd like to make a motion to approve the general fund expenditures in the total amount of $1,734,527.94. Do I have a second? Thank you, Judy. Any discussion? Surprised. Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, let's move on to the capital fund expenditures. Those are on page 28. I'd like to make a motion to approve the capital fund expenditures in the amount of $457,097.89. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Melanie. Any discussions? Yet again, wow. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, back to you, Melanie.
Thank you very much. We'll move to, I don't know that we have any new follow-up items. Not that I can remember, even if I don't read my own notes. I think we're good. All right, so we will move on to public comment. Dr. Farina, do we have public comments? Okay.
I hear somebody
Dr.
typing.
Ferris? Dr. Ferris, can you hear us?
Okay, fine. I don't really have a comment, but I have a question I would just like an answer to. At the August 2019 Facilities Committee meeting, attended by the committee members of Melanie Cunningham, Mike Elliott, and Rayanne Hofkin remotely, I was there, Dana Hipser, Peg Pennypacker, and Dr. Bonakemper. The topic came up of a dedication plaque that was presented for the new middle school. On that plaque, it had the members of the old board, the members of the current board, and the administrations of the old and new administration. Rayanne said she was in favor of not having her name on any plaque. Melanie Cunningham said she only wanted the new members on the board. I said that I was in favor of the plaque that was presented that had the old board members when the school was approved, the current board members, and the same with both administrations. It was decided that they would see what the past practice was in the schools, and then they would determine what was going to be on a plaque. My questions is, I would like to know what was the result of that past practice study? When was it determined what was to be on the plaque, and who decided what was going to be on the plaque? I cannot find anything in any minutes regarding this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ferris. Doug, do you remember? And it's been so long now. I have seen it and it looks great. I don't remember, to tell you the truth, Dr. Ferris.
I didn't say anything. I wanted to know when it was decided to do that.
Again, I don't remember, to tell you the truth. That was almost 2 years ago.
What was the reason? What was the?
You keep muting yourself.
Am I unmuted now?
You're
Yep,
good.
you're good. You're good, John.
Oh, I thought you wanted to say something. I was waiting.
I just think that somebody ought to have an answer to those questions, since it was brought up in the facilities committee meeting. If you check those minutes at the August 2019, and now you say that there's no record or nobody recalls what would happen, how it got there.
I think the issue is that there was 2 years has gone by, and offhand we don't remember. I'm sure we can pull it back up, but I think at the time it was decided that it was the other boards had something. It said thank you, like to the board members, and it's that way it didn't have everyone's name on it. I can't remember. I remember seeing something about it before go through, and because the one that was presented wasn't approved by the district, so then there was one that was to be, I don't know, more generic, I guess. I remember having a talk about it before at one of the facilities committee meetings. I just don't remember which one. I'm sure we could look into it and find out.
All I remember is I didn't care what it said as long as my name wasn't on it.
I remember that. I can, if you'd like to tune in, John, at our next facilities meeting. I know in my phone, although I don't want to spend 5 minutes looking for it from 2 years ago, I'll be happy to share what it looks like.
I would like to see that where it was approved. That's all. It doesn't have to be at any meeting or anything. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, John.
Well, I gotta jump in. Hold up. I
Go
thought
ahead.
we weren't putting a plaque up there. I thought we weren't putting a plaque, because I remember, because I was like, hey, it'd be great to have a plaque. I'm gonna go right there. I thought it would have been great to have a plaque with something, even if it had all our names, but just to commemorate James, right? And I was under the impression that we weren't doing a plaque. So we did a plaque?
Oh,
I don't,
it's in the front
maybe I
entrance.
don't remember. Maybe I don't remember.
It's in the front entryway. And I think I can't even tell you when it got there. I just remember seeing it when we had our meetings at the middle school.
Okay. I guess, did I miss the meeting? You got approved at?
No, Mike, because I know we never voted on.
Yeah, so we never voted on the plaque that went on there. I thought the idea was no plaque because we didn't want to upset anybody, didn't want to do anything, you know. And I took it. I was like, okay, I get it. We don't want to upset anybody's feelings, even though I really wanted to see my friend on there. I'm a little surprised that a plaque was then put up, because I'll be honest, I didn't know that. So I'm a little blindsided.
Well, I mean, a plaque was given to the
remember.
district. I'm just saying a plaque was given to the district directly from Breslin.
Maybe I
and-
don't remember. Maybe I don't
Yeah.
remember.
It was definitely done. I mean, I remember there was a
But did
revised plaque,
we do it at a meeting?
bunch of
Did we do it at a meeting?
I don't think it was up to us.
Okay, so I have confirmation that it wasn't done at a meeting.
I
Right?
don't remember exactly, but I'll make sure I tell you, okay?
If I may add, the scope of the project includes a plaque. Breslin did do an original plaque. We asked them to take it back, and it was redone for whatever was decided to go on the plaque, but a plaque was part of the building envelope because there's a plaque in every building. And that's, that's the norm. So it was decided we would have a plaque. The decision was not to have what was on the original plaque.
And I understand that. I guess if anything, I'm just a little, because I had had conversations with multiple members of everybody knows how I feel about this.
I mean, I think we've
Any
passed it
secret.
about 100 times going into meetings there, in all honesty, Mike. No offense.
Well, I come in the side entrance through the basketball thing. So,
Yeah, I don't use that entrance.
I'll find the picture in my photos later and I'll email it to you.
What happened to the study that was supposed to be done? What did they conclude?
I think that was 2 years ago. I think we're just having trouble remembering.
Just don't remember.
I can tell you, as part of it, a study, we took pictures of the plaques in all the buildings, and there's a variety of differences of what was included and what was not included. So it did help to see what was on those plaques, but then afterwards, a decision was made with what would be on the middle school plaque.
And again, I'll be happy to look it up and see what I can find on it because it was a long time ago. Thank you. Do we have any other public comments?
We had 2 submitted comments, but no other public comments. If you submitted those comments, could you raise your hand? If not, we do not have any other hands raised. There we go. Hi, Nate, can you hear me?
I think you picked the wrong person.
Oh,
Are you sure you don't have something to say?
so you're not Nate. I don't even see.
Nate's at the top of the list with his hand raised.
Doesn't have anything she wants
I know, that's what I said. Does Allison have anything to say?
Sorry, Allison.
Hi.
Oops.
Thank you.
Okay.
So we're,
Nate, can you hear us?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, Nate, please remind us of your full name and your township of residence.
I am Nate Curley, or known as Nathaniel Curley, and I am from Upper Hanover Township.
Great, thank you, Nate.
Now, basically, the topic I have the most concern is right now we have a large amount of children playing video games that are fairly violent, and yet they are seeing guns used to kill. They're seeing the guns actually, the thrill and excitement of what they look like. And there are a lot of gun owners out there that do use their guns safely and keep them safely secured away and unloaded. But then there's a lot of children that have the access, possibly by a parent that is ignorant, they're not doing proper things. And I think we should bring in the NRA or equivalent state police to actually give a training seminar, both in kindergarten and first grade, to actually bring firearm safety, just to make sure that our children are aware of these guns are something that can be used for recreation, but also they are for safety in the home, but they have to be used and understood by the children. But also the other thing that I wanted to bring up was also the COVID-19, the virus, the mask wearing, the redundant mask wearing outside. Now, obviously, this was just addressed by the CDC, but the ultraviolet rays kills the virus on contact. So the virus is so small that it is not able to be contained by the mask. It does not save you wearing a mask. The micron size of the virus is anywhere from a 0.06 to a 0.125 micron. The actual mask does not do that, as well as the N95 mask is only certified for 95% of particulates that are 0.3 and larger. So N95 mask is actually not even suitable for saving you from a virus, but yet we are still wearing masks, but yet outside the ultraviolet rays kills the virus on contact. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any others?
I see no others.
Okay. So at this time, I will close public comment and we'll move on to board comments. And just a question before I don't know if everybody has board comments or not, but a bathroom break would be really good.
I don't.
If we have a lot. Are we good to go? Okay.
I have no comment.
Okay. All right. Anyone else have any board comment? Make sure in the back around. Okay.
I have one.
Oh, go ahead, Rayan.
I just want to point out, or maybe it goes on maybe it should go on the list of things to look into. The meeting minutes for March 25th, April 8th, and the 22nd aren't posted online. I think maybe April 22nd isn't done because we didn't have a workshop this month yet, but the other two should be on there, right? Okay.
What were those dates again, Ray?
March 25th should be there. And then I think April 8th goes up tonight, right? Or tomorrow. Okay,
Yeah, we'll get it. Thank you.
thanks.
Okay. Anyone else have comments?
Oh, one other comment.
Oh, go ahead.
The agendas that go up for the public, there's no attachments for them. Has that always been that way?
Yeah, the attachments are deeper in the document, so there's not links. If you scroll down, like attachment A is after the last page, attachment B is the next page, attachment C is the next page.
Okay, so if they go further down from the agenda, they can see the attachments.
Unfortunately, sometimes those documents that are public are 20, 30, 40, 50 pages, and when you add in all the different documents, but yes. they are
Okay,
all
I
in
didn't,
there, yeah.
I didn't look. I'm just giving you feedback from somebody. Thank you.
Yep, just scroll.
Okay. Anything else?
Today's agenda is 123 pages if you click on the UPSD link. So that one seems like it has most of the attachments in it, I think.
It has
Unless
all the
there's-
ones except the ones that say school board only because of privacy,
Oh, okay.
those type of issues.
Okay. Any other comments? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion is
Good night.
approved. And thank you all very much.
Good night, thank you.
Good night.
Did you do that really fast?